and then we won't look at that anymore.
So we are, I'm going to double check, make sure we're recording. Okay, so if we all clap once, then we can get everything lined up with the different devices. Or just one person clap.
You did so well. Well, we are all here. It's August almost. It feels like August. It's still July, but it's very hot in Duluth, 2015. And a group of interns passed, although you're never really passed. And then present as we go through a transition period where some of the interns who've been with the journal for a longer time are all moving on. So if I'll introduce ourselves and we will go. I think you start.
My name's Tayler. I'm a junior this fall, biochem major, English minor.
I'm Kathryn Marcos Hirsch. I'm the managing editor, and before that, with North Star Reports, before that I was lead intern with the Middle Ground Journal.
I'm Brock Erdahl. I graduated from CSS 3 years ago, and for the last 2 years of my time at CSS, I was involved with the Middle Ground Journal.
I'm Jimmy Lovern. I'll be a junior here at the College of St. Scholastica. I'm serving as an assistant editor of the North Star Reports.
I'm Marin. I graduated this spring with a double major in Global Cultural Language Studies and Russian Studies, and I've been involved with the Middle Ground Journal since my sophomore year.
I'm Ellie Swanson. I graduated with an English major in 2009, and I'm going for my teaching degree at St. Scholastica, and I've worked as an assistant editor for the journal since 2012.
And I think we're hoping that this will be of interest to anyone who's interested in journal's activities and what we're doing, but especially for incoming interns as they get a feel for what we've done and what we're doing. So with that in mind, I think that maybe we should all go through sort of how we joined the journal and what we have seen in our time with it, and before we pass the baton. So since you have seniority.
Real quick, we can edit this part out. Do we want to be looking at the camera or each other when we're
I honestly, I feel too weird doing anything but looking at whoever's speaking.
Okay, yeah, just so we're like consistent that we're, yeah.
I won't be able to pull
Yeah, I like
off.
that better. I like the conversation better.
Because if we're doing this, then I'll just be the weird one. Not good.
When I introduced myself, I looked at the cameras, though. But whatever.
That was good.
Yeah.
That works? Okay. That was for them, this is for us. Okay.
But when you introduce yourself, I looked at every person. If we have to, I'm not professional.
Okay. So, I got involved in the journal at its very beginning. I guess I just got involved because of Dr. Liang. I had taken a lot of classes with him during my time here at CSS, and we had developed a pretty good rapport throughout that time. And it must have been around, I don't remember exactly when, but sometime in 2010, he approached me, told me about the ideas that he had for the journal and asked if I'd like to get involved, and I said yeah, and now I'm here.
What was your role at the beginning?
Design your own role.
Yeah.
In intern, I guess was the official title I was given, but I was just kind of involved in a lot of just little things, getting it set up. Later on, I guess I played a bigger role with writing things for the journal, but early on, my role was maybe not as clear. There were myself and a few other people that were involved with the journal at that point. It was a fairly small group, and I understand that it's grown exponentially since that time.
I guess I came on board shortly after Brock did. So we were interns at the same time. And at that time, a similar way that I came to it, I had classes with Professor Liang, and I was a history major, so global studies history journal was a natural, and I was very interested in the internship. it wasn't very clearly defined at that point. I think part of what was interesting to me in the beginning was the publishing aspects. We got to sort of see how publishers offer or accept requests for materials for review, and how people who are writing articles to submit for publication go through that process, and the editing process, and peer review, all of that. So I was interested in just the process of a journal. But at that time, the first lead intern for the journal, Megan Kelly, was already working on establishing our educational outreach that led to North Star reports. So I helped her a little with that. She really carried most of it. She was she did a lot of contacting people and fielding messages and coordinating. But at that point, we didn't have any other schools that we were working with, so it was all this theoretical, what we would like to do, and laying foundation. But I did get to be there for the end of her time doing that before she graduated.
Okay, I think I also started working on the journal because of Professor Leong just asking me if I'd like to, and it sounded interesting. And I think I came on when we actually had a rapport with North Star Academy when we were working with their 8th grade classroom on the reports. So I was interested in education, and the thing that drew me to the journal is the bridge that exists between middle school and high school and college, because there often is no bridge between the two. And it's sort of, when you're in middle school and high school, it's like this dark void that you're going to be released into eventually. But the middle ground North Star report helps to connect undergrad students with high school and middle school students, so I really like that aspect. And we got to go into the classrooms at North Star Academy to help students with research, so I really enjoyed that aspect.
I got involved with the Middle Ground Journal in the fall of 2012 when I had my first class with Dr. Leong. And it's kind of funny because I think I technically started that fall. We had history day. I remember we had like history day summary sheets to write up, and I had a mental block, so I listened to We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel, and that inspired the rest of the reports to write. But it seems to me that like spring of 2013 was when the momentum really started going with volunteering at North Star Academy and contributing more pieces. And I think the aspect of it that I admire the most is, I don't know, just like looking at your everyday life and seeing inspiration and seeing academic research from it, and I think just that freedom and creativity that the journal inspires. For example, why not write a piece about your hometown, or a piece about like the windows in Scholastica, or make a book review? You have total free reign.
So I got involved, also approached by Professor Liang, my first class here at St. Scholastica, and it's one of his world history classes. And I liked the idea, so I got on board kind of at a varying level. For the past 2 years, I think I've done volunteering at North Star Academy, which was a fun experience to be able to help 8th graders and find what interests them and what they actually want to research on. But you know, being able to read pieces and edit them is also a good skill to have, and to have that connection with so many different places, whether it's like Marin said, you know, a hometown, or windows in Scholastica, or Mongolia. You know, or there's so much flexibility with what we can do with the North Star reports, and I think I enjoy being able to read and utilize those articles just as you know, my classmates and other people do as well.
I also got involved in the same class that Jimmy took. Professor Lang talked to me after our family history reports that we did. We did these big, huge, long projects, and there was specifically a part of my project that he thought was really interesting, and that was about Norwegian trolls, which is a part of my family history that a lot of people don't really think of it as your own history, but it is a heritage thing. And so he just asked me, you know, do you think you could make that into an article based on what you already have? And I said, yeah, of course, and threw it together. And then I ended up doing quite a few other family history pieces. So I think it's just offered me a really unique way to kind of connect with my own history. I have relatives who've done a ton of research, and they've all been really excited to see these little bits and pieces of our family being published and out in the world. So that's been a lot of fun. I'm brand new to the assistant editing position. This fall will be my first time doing that, so I'm really excited to kind of get more into it and see what it's like and be more involved.
I think that's one of the things that is most interesting about the outreach aspect is seeing that when you go and volunteer and help an 8th grader with their research, you're applying the same principles. And when you're annotating news articles and explaining, you know, maybe it seems obvious why this is important, it's a big event, but then so what? You know, make those connections that those are things that you are doing in middle school and in high school and in college. And in, you know, if you go into any of the fields that you do with global history, that you're, you know, there's not a huge divide between those ideas in middle school and college, even though it does seem like there is. And that, you know, people are interested in Norwegian culture isn't all just, you know, I don't know what kind of very officious history there would be, but it is trolls, it is food, it is holidays, it is, you know, all those things that you learn about anyone's family history.
And I think, Taylor, you said it allowed you to like dive into your family history, and I think Marin and I were talking, it's not always obvious what like global connections are right around you or even in your own family or your own city, but the North Star Reports helps you to make those connections and like actually look at your own life and your own world and see that we are a globally connected part of the world. So we're not isolated.
I'll try not to keep this too much of a tangent, but I find it incredible that we have a huge readership base in Indonesia and India. And I think it's just to reverberate what everybody else has said, I think it's great that we have that strong focus on Duluth and the northeastern Minnesotan region, but the fact that we're kind of becoming chums and or chummy with people from all over the world. I just wonder like how people found out about it in the first place, and but I just think it's really, really great, and we kind of have that informal connection in a sense.
My children are home alone. Sorry. Edit.
We'll just pretend to shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't get anything done while you were gone.
Kids.
Curse them. Yeah, I left them. They're fine. Nothing's burning down.
Yeah.
That's terrible. I'm sorry, Marin.
Oh, it's okay.
Do you want to?
I just want to give a shout out to like our humor. Well, Professor Leong like gave the statistics at one of our like meetings, and I think he said that it has like a pretty strong following in China, even though I think WordPress is supposed to be blocked. But like, but I don't know. I just whenever I was just flabbergasted when I found out that like we're really big in Indonesia and India, and this thing. There are of course other countries, but I just think that's so cool that, and I think that there's a case of one of our readers is a high school teacher in India, and she uses our materials to help with her lesson plans, and I just think that's very awe-inspiring.
Yeah, I like the accessibility, the fact that it's online and free for anyone to look at. I like that openness of it. I think that's important.
Yeah, I think you know it also goes to making those bridging between middle school and high school. Most of our interns are either international students who are here at Scholastica, so they've already taken that leap to go study somewhere else and broaden their horizons that much. But also but it is a lot of students from northeastern Minnesota, you know, the Iron Range, Duluth, northwestern Wisconsin. So, you know, when we have a student who's in 8th grade and sort of thinking, well, what am I going to do in college, and what does this major lead to, and why do I care about global studies? But they do have students who are doing a study abroad in Russia, or who are teaching in Micronesia, or you know, but they also maybe went to your same high school, and you know, and are going to a school here, and you know, I think I'm not a native of Duluth. I think a lot of times I've been struck by this mentality that Duluth is sort of isolated and kind of off in the hinterland, or whatever Bush called it, and all of those things, when, you know, actually it's an international port. It's right near the international border with Canada. You know, we do have international students coming in. There's no reason to feel disconnected, you know, when you can make those connections online.
So for the members that have been around for a while, what was the approach like back then for the journal, and what have you seen that's changed? And you know, talk about maybe the evolution of Middle Ground Journal / North Star Reports.
Evolution, the approach, like, I think early on it was fairly informal, and I know it's not incredibly formal now, but at that point everything was a little more tentative, and we were still finding our feet, so to speak. So it was just trying to find people that were interested in getting involved in the program, and then drawing them in, finding out what are their skills, what are their interests, and then getting them to produce something from that. So we had people working on writing little pieces, both academic and more like travelogue type pieces. We had the start of this connection with the North Star Academy. So there were, at that point, several different aspects to the program, to the journal, but everyone was trying to find, or the whole program was trying to find its footing at that point. Things were not highly organized or solidified yet.
Yeah, I think one thing that might be a little deceptive about some of our online presence and the number of interns we have and all of that is that it gives the impression that it's much more structured than it is, when really it is. Projects are done to the extent that the volunteers' time allows. It's a, you know, online, free license, free journal, but it is all donated time. It's all donated resources. So that's been one of our big limits, and it was kind of whatever project became a pet of you know, the initiative of a certain intern would carry it. And so someone who was really interested in writing, you know, for a while we would have more writing if that person, for work or school reasons, or you know, graduating or whatever it was, would pull back from the journal, then that would kind of go down with them. And not to minimize the amount of guidance that we got from our chief editor, because he will give you all the advice that you want and explain things, but you know, you have to do it. If there's a project you want to see done, okay, that's great. We'll see it as soon as you do it, is how it's worked out.
And I think that decentralization is actually a strength, because it allows people to work on things that they're actually interested in, and they can devote all their energy to that, and the end product is a labor of love. So that I think that's a strength, that it's not something that's highly structured, highly organized, that there is an organizing focus, but people have the freedom to pursue their own interests within this kind of loose structure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it will take on a different character as different people take on bigger roles, because you know, our editing style right now depends on the editors, you know, and that's really what the character of it is. And the topics that we have, for, I think, we got a lot of people who are into Russia. Maybe all the Russian major and Russian language major minors are behind that. But if we have, more students who are, studying in Spain, like we had the past semester, for a while we had a really strong correspondent in Spain. She came back. So, we're going to keep having those things. But it does show that this is very personal. It's very, very much defined by the people. And we've been lucky that it attracts people who are self-motivated and who will, do a lot of work, because it does take a lot of work to make something come through.
One of the things that I remember Professor Lang saying at one point was how history, so much when you're reading a book, it's about the heroes, it's about the kings, it's about the people who do daring deeds and these great things. But a lot of the time, what really makes up history is all these little individual families, small people, the people that aren't in the history books. And I think this this particular writing that we do here really allows for those kind of stories to shine, because everybody has their own family's hero, and those aren't going to be necessarily all the kings you remember, but they have some story about how they changed something in the world, or how they did something great in their own way. And I think that's a really fun thing, because it's just such a cool thing to learn, and there's not a lot of places that you can just go find an individual and learn about some awesome thing they did in their lifetime.
Right. And I think study abroad is really important to the people who do it. I mean, it's a really significant experience in their life, but there's not often a way to share that with more people than just your family and friends.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a way for you to share something really significant that happened, at least in your 4 years at college, if not beyond.
And going along with that too, I guess in my experience I felt that, like, especially talking about a study abroad, it's an opportunity to have a diary and to kind of force yourself to reflect on all the events that happened, and you can go in the standard timeline, but I think there's something about the Middle Ground Journal and the North Star reports that forces you to go, just like to go beyond and just make these connections and to really think about, why is this memory sticking? Why was this important to me? And I've found that it's helped me kind of analyze and realize the impact of like travel experiences, because you have to do that extra level of analysis, which I think is great.
I mean, on the one hand, I think one of the barriers that we've had to coax some writers into overcoming is that, yes, you're qualified to do this. You are entitled to your opinion. Your experiences are interesting to other people. They'll read them. They'll be interested. They'll identify with some of the things because they'll have something similar in their family, or it will seem really exotic to them. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But that, yes, you're qualified to write it. But then, on the other hand, that it does make you focus what you're writing about just that bit more, where it is for an audience. You are thinking, well, I should make this point clear, because otherwise, what's the point? And, that I should try to tell someone else, that this reminded me of this, and here's why. And, that this maybe is a connection to this, and here's why. It sort of makes you follow through on a lot of those things that, especially in global studies, it is a huge tent. It ties to everything, and it might seem really clear to you at the time, why this is neat, but if you can't explain to someone else why it is, then you haven't gone all the way. You haven't completed the thought.
And I think Kathryn and I were talking about this earlier. It's both fun and embarrassing to look about how your writing develops as you've been more involved in the journal, because there are some pieces where I think it's just like, oh, I wish I could. We weren't too proud of, but we wanted to get rid of them forever.
Yeah.
But it's also one of the things too where you have to appreciate it, because you can see just what your writing style was like, what you focused on, what ideas you zoomed in on, and how that's grown since then. I mean, for better or for worse, hopefully for better, but it's really valuable on the part of the writers and the contributors and the journalists to kind of force yourself to like practice to keep up that habit, and then to have that stepping stone to look at where you've grown since then or where you've improved.
I think it's also really exciting, like all the people who leave comments with questions on all the articles. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I read through those, I answer all of them if they ask me anything, and it's really fun because then you kind of know what wasn't clear, you know what you need to change. And then additionally, people share their own stories and their own connections, and it's really fun. So like, you maybe think that something in your article is this great thing that possibly couldn't have happened to anyone else, and someone's like, that happened to me, I thought it was only me, and you can kind of just share this connection with someone you've never met, but you have something so in common. And even the opposite, something so different. Someone can read an article and be like, wow, that is the exact opposite of my culture, of how my family lives, of how my hometown is, and it's cool to see those opposites just as well.
I think one thing that is, most of our interns who are local are, 18 to 22, and they've probably lived in this area all their life or most of their life. And as someone who hasn't, one thing that I notice is there's often that realization that, oh, Minnesota has a culture. Because you think that's the default. Whatever you're used to is normal, and that's how things are. And then you realize that another American will be saying, oh, well, no, that sounds strange to me, or that's how everyone does it. Why were you surprised when you went to this place and, found this? And the realizing that, part of your identity is that local, but then there are things that transcend, where you're from and aren't important at all. But, that placing Duluth in the world is one of the interesting things, where it is in the world. It's not Duluth and then everything in a circle around it, and it's not the circle around Duluth, that it's all there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think having the flexibility to write, you don't have to study abroad to write a really interesting or compelling piece, and I think maybe that for some writers getting first involved, there's that conception that they need to be able to study abroad, at least for me, but and talking with Professor Liang, he very much welcomes, pieces from Duluth, pieces from your hometown, and just like if you were to be in another country, you have that, enhanced lens or vision that you're looking for those connections, and even if you don't follow through and write a piece on it, you are still thinking in that mindset of how, hometown Duluth family plays into the globe as a whole, and then the flexibility to do book reviews and documentary reviews, and even opens up more if that's what you want to, why not, if you're reading a lot or watching a lot of documentaries, why not just use it as a way to write and think.
Yeah, I think all of our writers, you develop, on the one hand, you have more respect for it. Okay, it takes a lot of thought and a lot of editing and all of that to produce a final product, and that everyone can use it, especially as an editor, you see that everyone can benefit from editing, and it makes you look at your own writing more critically, but then it is also that, that practice and that sort of just making yourself do it, that yes, it's worth doing. Some of our best pieces have been,
we might be out.
You can switch cameras too. I have one other camera.
Even if we had let me see, even if we had like a memory card.
Oh yeah, I can just give you.
Let me. I don't know why I would have. Maybe it just.
Well, remember when we were researching cameras, we found that so many of them in video stop at a half hour, no matter what.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
not very long.
No, and I think it is strictly to, keep their business divided well, because if you had a great camera that did it all,
Right.
Why would you need a camcorder?
yeah,
Or a memory card.
because they all do, like, point
Yeah.
and shoot cameras all do HD video.
Yeah.
So, but we found, is it memory card or battery?
I think it's a time thing because it went up after.
Oh, it'll let you go again?
It did like 20 right after 20 minutes it clicked. So I
Okay.
think we should be able to go again.
Okay, if you just start it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
'Cause it said,
'Cause I have, I have
Wow.
other memory cards, but
Yeah.
would it be funny if we just switched?
Right.
Oh, see, why not?
Quiz
Just switch the
time, do
voice,
you
no one
remember?
will even know.
Should we trade clothes too, though?
Yeah, it
That'd
just
be
every
really
20
fun.
minutes. So.
We should just switch
We're good.
the couches and then stay in the same order.
Yeah, fun. Now, what were you saying? Do you even remember?
No. A lot of our articles have been from classes where people will write about their hometown or write about an interesting historical building from their hometown. And you see when they're doing that research that they actually had a really hard time finding the material. So it sort of proves the point that this is worth writing about. If you do an online search and you can't find anything about, the courthouse in some town in Minnesota, then right, and you go and you do the article, do the research for the article where you're talking to your grandparents and you're going to the historical society in town, then you really are doing a service and you're making, real history by doing an article and publishing it online. And that it is interesting. They turn out to be interesting articles that other people want to read and get something out of, so they're worth doing, even if you feel like, well, this is my little town and I couldn't find anything about it online.
Beautiful thing about the Middle Ground Journal too is it gives you a lot of self-discipline and initiative to do it yourself. It's the idea where I have a day off, I'm gonna go to this museum, why not write a piece about it? Or, I'm reading this book or watching this documentary right now. I could just watch it as is, but if I want to dig a little deeper, why not write a report about it? But it doesn't, I think the thing is, it comes from yourself, so it doesn't feel like homework or it doesn't feel like too much of a chore. It's something that you genuinely want to do, and I think to keep up that legacy of lifelong learning as long as you can, that's phenomenal.
And we're open to all colleges, all students anywhere can come write. So even though right now we're predominantly St. Scholastica students because that's where we're housed, I like that we're expanding and that we're looking to spread out and get more people and from different places, in Minnesota, across the U.S., in the world, anywhere. And I think that's a really cool thing, and I'm excited because I've been talking to lots of friends, different schools, whether it's just the U of M, just a few hours away, or I have a friend in New York that I've been talking about and trying to get interested in. It's just so fun because they're like, well, I just don't know what I'd write about. And I was like, well, you tell me stories about this all the time. And they're like, yeah, you forget that even though it's just your everyday life and things you talk about and want to be doing, it is something unique to you and no one's ever going to experience it exactly the same way that you do.
Yeah, we had some contributors from Texas over the past semester, and just from finding us online, we hadn't approached them. Professor Leung can only teach so many students and wrangle so many. So far his reach has been limited. But as more people are reading them and word of mouth and all that, we're starting to see more people get involved. And it is neat to make those connections. I think one thing I'd be interested in is how, you're in education, you're planning to go into journalism, all these things that are similarly interdisciplinary in that, they touch many facets of life and they require a lot of empathy and, similar discipline to studying global studies. But, do you think that I guess, what am I trying to say? Do you see that as natural tendency that you had that maybe led you into being involved in global studies as an undergrad, or do you think that it led to pursuing those sorts of fields?
A natural tendency, or
Yeah. I mean, do you think it was more your innate predilection to
Mhm.
to look
Mhm.
at the world that way, or do you think that it was something that you sort of developed?
a little of both, really, I think.